Hi booktubers, I am here today with a video about short stories. I know a lot of people actually say that they don't like short stories. They feel like they're too short, they're not developed enough, they're not as enjoyable as a novel. And I call bullshit on that. I think you just haven't found the right short stories yet. Certainly short story collections are not all created equal. So today I'm going to show you some of my favorites, and I'm going to show you some of the books that I have on my shelves coming up. And I'm going to make a lot of recommendations in the description below. So even if it's something I don't have to show you today, or even if it's something that I forget to talk about, I'm still going to recommend, because I think there are so many great short story collections that there's something for every reader. So the first recommendation I have is In Our Time by Ernest Hemingway. And if you're new to Hemingway or if you're new to short stories, this is a very slim volume. It's a great place to start. And as with a lot of Hemingway's work, there's a lot going on under the surface. So there's one particular story from this collection that I remember vividly, and it's called Cat in the Rain, and it's about a woman whose cat gets stuck out in the rain. And on the surface it doesn't look like much, but I discussed this one with a graduate class, and we all agreed that that story was very much about sex. So if you like short stories that are based in nature, that are often quite simple and short on the super short side, and you want to try some Hemingway, then this is a great collection. You'll whip through it super fast, and if you don't see any of the symbolic things going on in this book, it's okay. You can still enjoy it, but do a little digging and see what the interwebs have to say, spark notes and stuff like that, because you might get a little additional insight. I'm also a big fan of The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, and this is another wee tiny book of short stories, and these are all fairy tale retellings. And it was interesting because Angela Carter would sometimes tackle the same fairy tale in a few stories back to back, and so it was a really interesting comparison to see the different directions that she would take those stories in a short amount of space. So it's not terribly repetitive. I want to say she tackled maybe Beauty and the Beast 2 or 3 times in this book, but the rest of the stories were other fairy tales. And so yeah, this was a great book, and she has just beautiful writing. I talked in my last review about Simon von Booy. I reviewed his new collection of vignettes that are all tied together like a novel. That is The Illusion of Separateness. But this is his very first book of short stories that I really fell in love with, and it's called The Secret Lives of People in Love. And some of these stories are on the long side, some are very short, but they're all very fulfilling. They all feel like they have a beginning and an end, which I think is what bothers some readers when they read short stories. So Simon von Booy is a master of this particular format, so I definitely recommend his work. Another one of my very favorite short story collections is No One Belongs Here More Than You by Miranda July. And Miranda July has not written a ton. She's written a few books, and not enough in my opinion, but this one was wonderfully weird. If you enjoy books that are a little off kilter, that are a little bit ridiculous, that are a little bit like B-movie strange, these are very hip, and they're a lot of fun. I remember there was one story in particular where a woman is giving swimming lessons in her living room, in her very dry living room. And so they act out the backstroke on the floor, and I mean, there was a whole purpose to it, but it was just one that really stuck out in my mind. And this collection was a lot of fun, and it's not huge. It's a pretty quick read, but totally worthwhile if you get the chance. Now we have some books that I haven't read, but I'm really looking forward to. First, we have Edible by Mark Kurlansky, and these are obviously, as you might have guessed, all tied together with the theme of food. The way that people come together and socialize over food, the role that food plays in people's lives, both good and bad, it all ties the stories together. So I'm really looking forward to this one as well. I'm going to say that about all of them. We also have Angels and Insects by A.S. Byatt, and I don't have it here with me, which is kind of freaking me out, but one of my very favorite short story collections ever is by A.S. Byatt, and it's called Little Black Book of Stories. And some of those stories have like a paranormal, I don't really want to say paranormal, it's more of like a mystical or a mythical, magical realist type touch to them. And so I'm kind of expecting the same thing from Angels and Insects. I haven't started reading this book yet, but I think it's beautiful. And her writing is really rich. It's really literary, but it's not hard to read. It's not hard to get into. It's just really jam-packed with meaning. And so I can really get on board for that. I also have Full Dark, No Stars by Stephen King. And there are 5 very short, well, not very short. They actually are, I think, categorized as novellas. But 5 shortish works by King, especially if you've seen the size of his normal novels. They can be over 1,000 pages easy. So to cram 5 of them into this book in 373 pages is kind of a feat for King. So this one doesn't sound like it's straightforward horror. It sounds like it's more on the literary spectrum, maybe with some thriller type twists. So I'm really excited about this one. Although USA Today says wonderfully gruesome. So who knows what I have in store for me. Someone on my blog actually said there are some really empowered women in this book. So I'm looking forward to that. And last but certainly not least, I have a beautiful book, Birds of a Lesser Paradise by Megan Mayhew Bergman. And I think this book came out maybe a year or 2 ago. And so all of the stories in this book are tied together by humans' relationships to animals. And I don't know how overt that is because I haven't read it yet, but I just do know that animals and wildlife kind of play a role in this book. And so I'm really looking forward to it. It's another relatively slim volume, and it's gotten some fantastic reviews. So can't wait to read that. So I would love to know what your favorite short story collections are, or if you can't think of a collection in particular, who are some of your favorite short story writers? Not pictured here, but I absolutely love Alice Hoffman and her short stories. They are definitely fall within that magical realism category. I highly recommend Blackbird House and The Red Garden. All of those are collections of stories that deal with one particular house or one particular location over the span of about 100 years, and they tell the story of the families and the individuals who have come and gone in those locations and how they all kind of tie together. So they definitely have that sense of cohesiveness that you might get with a novel, but are actually made up of short stories. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you'll check some of these books out, and I hope that you'll share some of your favorites. You guys have a great day.